At CIA, the attitude was, we'll put some guys on a helicopter and fly into Afghanistan tomorrow.
We know how to invade countries, unfortunately.
And Pakistan was going to have to deal with the situation. You are with us or we will bomb you into the Stone Age.
Beaucoup de Taliban ont été tués, mais la plupart ont été dispersés. Où sont-ils allés?
Smoke was still rising from the rubble when the French president became the first foreign leader to visit what's now known as Ground Zero, 10 days after 9/11. Jacques Chirac's trip had been in the diary for a while, and the US president had no intention of cancelling. The message was crystal clear. America has been hit, but is still standing.
Chirac a d'entrée de jeu dit au président américain que nous étions prêts à lui apporter toute notre aide. Le président Chirac lui a dit il n'y a qu'une chose que vous ne pouvez pas me demander, ce sont des opérations homo, c'est-à-dire des assassinats ciblés. Le président Bush était très surpris, je dois dire.
On n'a pas le sentiment que cette administration va utiliser cette horreur pour conduire des guerres de grande ampleur ou pour se lancer dans des aventures militaires.
Mais clairement, je veux dire, quand on connaît le président Bush un peu, clairement, je veux dire, c'était une affaire que les Américains allaient régler eux-mêmes. C'est évident.
Plans for an operation inside Afghanistan were quickly taking shape. It was there, in a land governed by the Taliban, that Al-Qaïda had set up its support base. The US focused first on neighbouring Pakistan, which was led by General Musharraf. It was one of the few countries to throw its support behind the Taliban in order to maintain some kind of influence. Islamabad was buying itself peace on its western border, while tensions simmered with India along its eastern frontier. On the 11th of September 2001, the head of Pakistan's military intelligence, General Mahmoud Ahmad, was in Washington for a visit.
He came in to see me and he wanted to explain to me that I had to understand the history of the Taliban and whatnot. And I said, no. General, history begins today. And here are 6 demands or 7 demands that Secretary Powell and I wrote ourselves on a piece of paper and gave it to him and said, please get in touch with President Musharraf, talk to him about this. We need yeses on all of them, not yes maybes, yeses. He was very angry with me, and I could see that he was reluctant. I took him into my back office where I had displayed a Star of Pakistan, an award that was given to me during the Soviet war for supporting the Mujahideen from Pakistan. And I said to him, do you know what this is? And he said, of course, it's the Sitari Pakistani. And I said, that's right. And if you do not agree to our demands, no American will ever receive one of these again. I promise you. Next day he came in and said President Musharraf had agreed with everything.
The version that General Musharraf has given was that the message that was conveyed by General Mahmoud was that you are with us or we will bomb you into the Stone Age. In the subsequent months, I can tell you that my relationship with the ISI, the Pakistani Intelligence Service, shifted 180 degrees. Anything that we wanted with regard to Al-Qaeda, they would give us, and we cooperated very, very closely. But those same rules did not apply to the Taliban.
US intelligence officials succeeded in making contact with Mullah Osmani, a deputy to the founder of the Taliban, Mullah Omar. Robert Grenier, the head of the CIA's outpost in the region, went to meet him. Grenier was hoping to persuade him to hand over bin Laden.
And he did something that I've never seen a Pashtun tribal leader do before. He took off his turban and he put it on the table beside him. And he seemed hopeless because he knew what a disaster was going to befall them if they went to war with the United States. And he said, tell me what I should do. So I said, look, we know that Mullah Omar can't, for many reasons, he can't break with bin Laden, but you can. you can do what Mullah Omar can't. It's up to you to save the movement. Nobody's saying that you should harm Mullah Omar, but you need to put him under house arrest. You need to immediately make a public statement saying what you're doing and why. You need to rally the rest of the Shura. And of course, we just went through the whole list. Basically, how do you launch a coup? And he listened to me. He said, okay, I'll do it. And it was like a weight was lifted off his shoulders, and then he jumped in his vehicles and off they went back to Kandahar. So I was hoping against hope that his resolve would survive the trip to Kandahar, but I feared that it wouldn't, and in fact it did not.
Having failed to convince the Taliban to abandon Al-Qaeda, Washington prepared to push them from power by force. The US Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld told the Pentagon to prepare for an offensive. But the military was keen to point out that the time needed to prepare for such a mission in such a faraway and troubled land meant that things couldn't move as quickly as President Bush would have liked.
Rumsfeld was furious with the Army for not being able to get major ground forces into Afghanistan on a timely basis. Kabul's ready to fall and we have nobody there.
At CIA, the attitude was, we'll put some guys on a helicopter and fly into Afghanistan tomorrow. Like, let's go. We don't care. We don't need hundreds of guys. Let's go. And in fact, that's actually how the invasion started, as everybody knows now. Old Russian helicopter and about 8 CIA guys, and fly in with bags of money to talk to a bunch of tribal leaders that fortunately we had maintained contact with over the years.
When these local tribesmen who were against the Taliban saw the CIA's suitcases brimming with dollars followed by the arrival of US Special Forces, they understood that Washington was in this for the long run. Fighting began with the Americans launching airstrikes in support. The Northern Alliance made rapid gains. The forces of the late Commander Massoud felt buoyed by their success, and without the green light of the US, decided to enter the Afghan capital Kabul.
کابل به دلیل رفتار نادرستی که طالبان انجام داده بودند یا به یک شهر پرعقده تبدیل شده بود. نکنه که اگر ما وارد نشیم در کابل قتل و قتال بیشتر شود، مردم به فکر انتقام گیری شوند، کابل خدای نخواسته مورد چور و چپاول قرار بگیره. دوم، اگر ما وارد به شهر کابل نشیم نکنه که طالبان دوباره بازگشت بکنن.
The military and CIA operation that defeated the Taliban and took Kabul is probably the most brilliant American military operation since the Second World War. Done exactly right, in my opinion. Very few Americans. US air power. Tribal allies. The Taliban is destroyed.
The beginning was quite straightforward. We know how to invade countries, unfortunately.
Al-Qaeda's members were now in hiding deep in the Afghan mountains. The White House was keen to avoid a power vacuum, and it didn't want to see Afghanistan spiral out of control. Several foreign powers offered to intervene militarily. The then French president was eager to keep his word, but both Jacques Chirac and his Prime Minister Lionel Jospin remained cautious.
Pour l'essentiel, nous frapperons avec nos avions à partir d'un porte-avions que nous avons déployé en Méditerranée. Nous avons, pendant un temps, déployé des forces spéciales, mais pour l'essentiel, en accord avec le président de la République à l'époque, nous bornerons notre intervention à la sécurisation de notre ambassade, du siège des Nations Unies à Kaboul qui a été ouvert. Au moins tant que je suis au gouvernement, jusqu'en 2002, donc, nous n'entrerons pas dans l'engrenage militaire afghan.
Ce qu'il faut bien dire, c'est qu'un certain nombre de pays n'arrivaient pas là pour combattre. Vous avez des pays, et je pense notamment à l'Allemagne, c'était une des difficultés que nous avions avec eux, mais pas simplement l'Allemagne, qui avait des restrictions d'emploi.
Soyons francs, en Afghanistan, les soldats de l'OTAN, ils font un peu de la figuration. Pour les Américains, il était important de montrer qu'ils n'étaient pas seuls. que c'était pas une invasion américaine, que c'était, voilà, qu'il y avait tout l'Occident civilisé était derrière les États-Unis.
Some decided during the calm that followed the fall of the Taliban to intervene to a bare minimum, but this was a thin and fragile blanket of calm that lay over Afghanistan.
Like 2002, 2003, up to 2004, the situation was getting better. You could travel from here to any part of the country. There was no district under Taliban control.
We, me, all of us, took our eye off of the ball. And some in the administration in the middle of 2002 started thinking about Iraq. And we put Afghanistan, frankly, on automatic pilot and turned our attention to Iraq and left Afghanistan just drift.
Beaucoup de talibans ont été tués. Les autres, certains ont été arrêtés, mais la plupart ont été dispersés. La question que personne ne s'est posée sérieusement, où sont-ils allés? Où étaient-ils?
Ils n'ont pas disparu. Oui, c'est ce que me disaient d'ailleurs les militaires. Ils me disaient, mais les talibans, que pour nous, nous partons le matin faire une patrouille. On voit des Afghans dans le champ qui nous font bonjour, etc., qui nous font des signes amicaux. Ils disent, on revient le soir, les mêmes ont pris des fusils et nous tirent dessus. Quelle différence y a-t-il? Les talibans sont aussi des Afghans et ils se fondent complètement dans la population.
The security situation worsened each year. At the start of 2009, Barack Obama picked up the reins of power in Washington. After mulling over the prospect of taking part in a conflict that he would rather have pulled out of, the new US president decided to strike hard.
Barack Obama surged 30,000 troops into Afghanistan and said, 18 months from now, we're pulling them out. Okay, this is obviously a ridiculous thing to do. I mean, don't send them or send them and tell them to come home when they finish the job.
Over 100,000 American soldiers and tens of thousands of NATO personnel were deployed. But the Taliban continued to play to its own tune, carrying out attacks against foreign forces. They knew that these troops would one day have to leave, whilst they were there to stay. Meanwhile, in Washington, officials were starting to realize that from the beginning, Pakistan had just been telling the Americans what they wanted to hear.
Let me right away say that Pakistan has taken a considered decision to be a part of the coalition, to be with the United States, to fight terrorism in all its forms, wherever it exists.
May we? Of course. They were playing a double game. They were doing enough to keep the Americans off their back and to get the assistance from America. At the same time, certain elements of Pakistan armed forces were supporting the Taliban.
But if you look at it from their perspective, they were protecting themselves because they couldn't be sure what the future would bring.
100% cooperation definitely never came from Pakistan. And the Bush administration's error was to think that it will be a gradual process. They were happy with 30-40% cooperation in the beginning, then 50%. They never understood that as long as it's not 100%, then it will regenerate itself.
Le problème, c'est que nous sommes des Occidentaux et j'aurais tendance à dire que justement notre vision, c'est la capitale, c'est la construction d'un État central et c'est un peu le modèle que nous connaissons et nous ne sommes pas capables de pousser un autre modèle.
People say, why can't we win the war in Afghanistan? I say, you won the war in Afghanistan about 5 months into it, right? All your objectives were achieved. All of them. And then you came up with a brand new plan to turn Afghanistan into Switzerland in Central Asia.
The Bush administration was, however, overlooking reconstruction and especially the economy. At the start of the conflict, it was coughing up just $52 per inhabitant, compared to $814 in Kosovo and $1,390 in Bosnia a few years earlier.
Si vous donnez à quelqu'un un fusil et vous vous lui dites qu'il travaille pour l'État, il ne peut pas nourrir ses enfants. À quoi vous vous attendez? Enfin, il est obligé presque d'utiliser son fusil pour nourrir ses gosses. Ça, c'est une très très grande question qui se pose dans énormément de pays du tiers-monde. C'est pas la peine de chercher midi à 14 heures.